Hi guys, welcome or welcome back. Thank you so much for being here. It is so greatly appreciated. It truly, truly is. Before I get started, let me give you my usual disclaimer. This video is for educational purposes only. Please do not take what I say as fact. Please always do your own research and come to your own conclusions. Next, if you have not liked, subscribed, or commented yet, please consider doing so because it really helps me out and I really, really appreciate it. And today we are going back down the Reddit rabbit hole with a story time that I have not read yet. So I will be reacting to it with you guys for the first time right now. Psychopath. This happened about 5 years ago. I randomly just felt like I wanted to share this with someone. I also hope this can help other people in a similar situation. Okay. I had gotten out of a 2-year-long relationship living in the city I moved to with my then boyfriend. After he left, I felt lonely and heartbroken. I was stuck in the apartment we had shared. I downloaded Tinder to chat with guys as a way of coping with the breakup. There, I matched with this guy. He was about 4 years older than me. He was extremely handsome and charming. He was very much into fitness and he had an amazing body. After talking for a few days, he asked to meet, so we did. He came over to my house and I was immediately attracted to him. He was a bad boy, the kind I usually fall for, but he was also sweet in the way he talked to me. He kept complimenting me and doing sweet stuff to me. After a few days of meeting, we ended up having sex, and it was honestly the best sex I ever had. Oh, good for you. Wish I had some. Sorry. I felt this intense chemistry between us. We started hanging out and having sex a lot. At the time, I did smoke marijuana a lot. Yes, I know how to pronounce the name correctly. Somebody asked me that one time. Yes, I do know, but I get flagged enough on here. So I say marijuana. I know he smoked too and did some other stuff. I didn't really care much at the time. Eventually, he would keep asking me to hang out pretty much every day, begging me to come over because he missed me. When I told him I was too tired, he would bribe me with stuff, like saying he would give me massages, marijuana, dinner, romantic things, giving me the best night, etc. He didn't like it when I told him no. He would sometimes get angry, send me a bunch of messages, just pleading for me to come over. After every time I had been to his house, he would shower me with his love via messages. He was so romantic, saying I made him feel so amazing. There's something special about me and that he loved being with me. He would often shower me with compliments, but then get angry when I said I didn't have time to hang out with him. One time when I was at his house, he got a phone call from someone. He hung up and he told me he had to go upstairs and hide because his baby mama was coming over. I did not think that's where that was going. He didn't want her to see me because she was crazy. He told me some stories of crazy stuff she had apparently done. I believed him. He was very convincing. I believe this happened twice. Now, I know I should have seen the red flags. I probably did to some extent, but I didn't care much. I kept hanging out with him a lot, even though I figured out he was heavy on coke and speed. One day I was at his house and we had sex. I smoked a lot. He was on coke and probably some other stuff. He wanted to have sex again, but he got frustrated that he couldn't get it up. He got mad and kind of blamed it on me for not being firm enough on the grip. Oh my God, what the hell? Really? Is that... He kind of yelled at me to squeeze it harder, and he just kept getting more frustrated. I felt uncomfortable and wanted to leave, but he wanted me to stay. He tried to continue, but it didn't work. I was extremely uncomfortable and felt embarrassed. After a while, I told him I wanted to leave. He then told me to give him back the marijuana he gave me, as in his mind, it was his payment to me being with him. I honestly felt so pissed that I just grabbed my stuff and walked out the door. He followed me. At first, he walked calmly about 30 meters behind me, begging me to stay with him, asking where I was going. I kept walking and saying no. He then ran towards me. I picked up my phone to call a friend of mine because I could tell he was getting aggressive. I turned around and saw him literally tear his shirt open and stomp towards me. He grabbed my phone out of my hands, then kicked me in the stomach so hard I fell into a ditch. He then smashed my phone to the ground and told me, "You're done." I thought he was going to beat me up, but then it looked like he was actually trying to contain himself for a second and just turned around and left. I was mortified by what he had done. I ran away shaking. I can't even remember how I got home, but somehow I did. I was able to borrow a phone from someone and called my friend. He came over. I had bruises on my stomach and legs and had no phone. I also called the police using a friend's phone and told them I wanted to press charges. Well, good for you, as you should. A few days later, he messaged me saying I tried to steal from him, that I took advantage of him just to get some marijuana. A few hours later, he texted me saying sorry. A few more hours, he texted asking what happened to me yesterday. Then a week later, he found out I had reported him to the police. He was mad. He said he couldn't believe I reported him. Then he told me he would give me 2 new phones or whatever I wanted if I just withdrew the report, that he wouldn't contact me anymore if I just did it. He just didn't want any trouble and didn't want to lose his daughter. I didn't answer. Then he sent another message, fabricating the whole story of what happened that night. He kept harassing me for weeks with messages. Some days he was begging us to get back together or be friends, bribing me. Other days he was accusing me of random stuff, calling me names, etc. He would report me to the police for stuff I had never actually done. He kept acting like a smartass, saying he would beat me in court. It just all became big chaos. After a few months, there was a trial. I couldn't attend physically, so I testified via phone call. I was questioned about a relationship and the incident that night. He lied and made up stories about me, but no one believed him. As the trial was done, I received all the papers in the mail. I was in shock when I read it. He had previously been charged with R word towards his ex. Apparently, there was also an incident where he forced his ex-girlfriend to touch herself while multiple other men watched and videotaped her. What? There were other girls too that had experienced similar things. Stuff like robbery, weapons, fights, violence, torture, you name it. He had been to jail multiple times. I had no idea I had been dealing with such a dangerous man. I'm pretty sure he's a psychopath. He has no understanding of what he has done. Sick part is, I recently came across a post about him on Facebook. Apparently, he is pretty popular with women lately on Snapchat and Instagram. He posts stuff about his life, whining about being beat up by random men, being tortured, robbed, etc. That people follow him with GUNs. I have learned that the reason he keeps being beat up by people is because they know what he has done. Fair, reasonable. You probably deserve the beating. He posted pictures of himself at the hospital to make people feel bad for him, and they do. He makes women feel sorry for him. He says people lie and make up stories about him, and he gains pity. He then posts all the sweet replies and messages girls sent him, saying stuff like he feels so grateful for all the support. He's extremely good at manipulating people. I honestly feel so lucky that I got away at the time I did, and that it didn't escalate any further. I checked his Facebook, and apparently he has a girlfriend now. I pray he doesn't hurt her in any way. Sorry if everything is not in order, or something is missing. I kind of wrote this in a rush. Damn, girl. See, this is why, like, I keep feeling like, I need to move on. I need to, I need to find somebody. I need to move on. I don't want to find this. I don't know what to do because you know what? I feel like I'm a pretty decent catch, and I'm scared. I don't want to find this. I don't need this in my life. I have enough shit in my life. I don't need this in my life. Yeah, so I mean, I don't know. I guess, who has advice? Who is in their 40s and is finding love? And how did you do it and not find a psychopath? Let me know. A relationship that fucked me up so bad, I haven't gotten into another one since. It's been 5 years. I was just a sophomore in high school and I fell head over heels for the new quiet kid and thought he was my forever. Crazy, but I would actually go on marrying down the road just 1 week after graduation. High school sweethearts. Ha, looking back now, I can see how many red flags I noticed but ignored because I was young and eagerly wanting to be grown up. Yeah, I was like that too. And then I grew up and I realized that I wanted to be young again. Don't rush it. Fast forward. The night before my wedding day, I was going over last minute wedding details with my mom, who is easily one of the most caring and selfless people I know. So bless my sweet mama's heart when I asked her if she'd be mad if I decided I didn't want to go through with the wedding. Wedding was the next day. But me being me, mom thought I was messing with her. I couldn't tell her the truth of what was going on. So I took a deep breath and forced an believable chuckle. She genuinely thought I was just pulling another one of my jokes. I went on to finally tell her the truth almost a year after I escaped him. And she still feels bad for not taking it seriously. No one knew what was going on behind closed doors, but makes sense. I was honestly his biggest PR team. Only 2 hours passed since saying I do's, he was throwing me out of the truck in my parents' driveway, cursing and yelling that he wanted a divorce, recklessly driving off. So much for all that honeymoon phase. On our actual honeymoon, I ran inside and my dad came out of the bedroom and he couldn't understand a word I was saying. But he's trying to basically ask me what was happening. And I say it as clear as I could while uncontrollably sobbing. He left me. How could he on our honeymoon? My dad is pissed, but then relaxed and tried to rationalize the situation. Like maybe he forgot something, pulling a bad joke or something like that. Then we see his truck flying in our driveway, and my dad smiles and said, "See, he's right there." I wiped my tears and walked out the door and tell them, yes, it was a prank. Inside, I was screaming. I was so embarrassed for myself because now I look crazy. But if I wanted to save this relationship, they could never know the truth. Oh, God. Months go by and he starts being sweeter ever since we had to be long distance because he was in the military at training. But soon I would be packing up my life and moving to Texas with him. I could tell my parents were starting to see the cracks I had worked so hard to glue together. My mom even picked up my phone on the table, mistaking it for hers, and saw this huge message from my ex and just started crying, begging me to stay because he was not a good person. But I assured her that this was way out of character for him.
That was a lie.
And that he was just lonely. I knew she didn't believe me, but she also knew I was stubborn and was going to do whatever, regardless of her concerns. After just a few weeks in Texas, I knew my life was in danger. It was Thanksgiving Day, and my family just called to check up on us and just tell us Happy Thanksgiving. And the moment I hung up, the man I thought was my soulmate started cursing at me and saying that I need to stop talking to my family because he was my family now. I let out a little chuckle thinking he was joking, and he picks up our wedding glasses I specifically had made for us and throws them directly at me, shattering around me. Shocked, I didn't know what to do, so I walked over to the broom and started sweeping up the broken glass. You may read this and think surely he would be done throwing a tantrum by now, but no. He then throws a picture frame at me while I'm sweeping up the glass. Honestly, that broken glass on the wood floor was just a metaphor for any love I had left towards this man. I broke that night. I stopped seeing him as my other half and more as the monster I'm stuck with. I became very depressed, and he loved that. It was horrible. He would break me down over and over again just to get a reaction. 2 months go by, and one night he completely lost his shit over the washer and dryer people messing up the days they were supposed to come, and he started pacing back and forth, mumbling words I couldn't quite make out, but demanded that I call and fix it. Grabbed me, sat me on the couch, telling me what to say and that I better not fuck it up. Like a damn negotiation. This man was paranoid, making comments that they were doing it because he was a soldier. Then started blaming me even though I wasn't even around him when he called in the first place. I'm on the couch, still processing that moment. He says, "You're so stupid. This is your fault. Did you plan this with the workers just to make me look dumb, or are you really just that dumb? You effing bitch." That's what I effing thought, you effing no good, ungrateful bitch. She says, "You know what? I'm done. You won't do anything except complain and bitch at me, blaming me for everything. All you do is curse and yell at me for no damn reason." He looks at me with this look that I've heard other victims try and describe, and the best I could describe it is a darkness in his eyes, like an emptiness that still causes me nightmares to this day. Without hesitation, he lunges at me in the middle of the day with our curtains open, door wide open, neighbors out and about. He throws me against the wall and starts choking me. I slowly see black, but he lets go only for a second because then he slammed my entire body to the floor. I either blacked out or my brain was trying to shield myself from what was happening, but piece by piece I would come to, and he was holding me by my shoulders and just repeatedly slammed me on the wood floor. My screams ignored by the people outside. I pleaded for anyone to call the police and repeated yelling for help over and over. Nobody called for you? How can nobody call for you? Where do you live? My fight or flight takes over and chooses flight. I run to the main bathroom and lock the door, frantically calling my mom because in that moment, I just wanted to hear her voice, unsure if that would be my last. But my poor mom didn't know the nightmare of that phone call until it was too late. She was with my sister and dad, and she put me on speakerphone because we usually do this so they can all talk to me like we're all together. But instead they hear me screaming for my life and hear my ex calling me awful names and telling me to get my ass in there and to unlock the door. They were confused, and my dad was ready to come kill this a-hole himself. But then silence. No more banging, just me softly crying and just trying to calm my mother over the phone, telling her that I am all right and that I know I need to leave him, but that I had to do it in the safest way possible because if he were to catch me, I may not make it out with my life. Oh my God. When I walk out of my room, my ex is just sitting there with a blank stare, like nothing had happened. This was the theme throughout our 3-year relationship, but I could no longer ignore the escalation of behavior. So, one night, I put my escape plan in action. I was going to make a run for it. It was 2 a.m. Keys to my Pontiac were on the kitchen table, and he was asleep in the bedroom that I wasn't allowed in several days earlier. I busted out of the guest bedroom that was my prison and beelined out the front door quietly, but also as quickly as possible. 9.5 hours to my home state. Only stopped once in Dallas to fill up on gas. With every mile in my rearview mirror, I felt something inside that reassured me I'm free now, forever scarred, but most have healed or faded. I 100% believe had I stayed, I'd be 6 feet deep. So, whoa. Good for you, girl. I wish you nothing but the best. I'm so sorry this happened to you. This is horrible. Mid-90s terror. I grew up in the 1990s, born in the late 80s, and I remember getting my first bike and starting to explore the area in which I grew up in upstate New York. Where I grew up is much different now than it was in the 90s. It was more rural with clusters of neighborhoods here and there. I lived near an old capped landfill and the main road connected a lot of semis down to some factories in a neighboring town that was like 5-minute bike ride. We also had an old Baptist church that was founded by an eccentric former hippie who was really good to the community. My dad, who was a very serious drinker, loved to fish, hunt, etc. with his friend because it gave him an excuse to drink and kill something. Okay. I mean, I guess as long as it's not a person, you're... He ended up making this deal with this pastor and the gentleman who owned the pond behind the church to stock it with fish. As at the time, my dad and his friends started becoming serious competitive fishers, and they actually went on to buy a boat together that my dad had to sell to eventually keep drinking. So, my friends and I had permission to fish there in the summer, and we would go down and swim and all that. I lived easily less than 5 minutes from this pond, and my friends and I go out there one summer day. This was around 1995. My mom had heard on the news a week prior about a wave of kidnappings. I don't remember if Amber Alerts were a thing then, so she decided to make a code word with me. She came to me and told me if anyone ever tried to convince me that they knew my mom or dad in the hopes to get me in their car, to ask them for the code word. Ours was pickles. That's actually really intelligent. That's really smart. That's a really good idea. Should probably talk to my kids about doing something like that. Oh, fast forward to our fishing trips. My friends leave before me, and we actually had just sat around and swam more than anything. My friend Dennis got mad because he was serious about fishing, so he and his brother left, and I was alone on the road. Once you got past this farm, it was a straight shot to the main part of town, and our road was on the right, just before the road ended. So I get to my road and I'm about to turn, and I didn't notice I was being followed by a beige colored pickup with this Cletus looking guy from The Simpsons in it. He greets me and tells me that my mom and dad are waiting for us at this local restaurant, which I knew. He tells me that they asked him to come get me and meet them there so we can all have dinner. Immediately, I thought of what my mom said, and I started getting this evil feeling like I was in danger. So, I told him that my parents specifically have a password that they give their friends. And that if it was their friend, which he was required to tell me, at which point he got mad and started swearing at me. Although I didn't see one, but I was certain he had a GUN as he started fumbling in the truck. I turned and started pedaling down the road, screaming for help and that I was in danger. He jerked his truck to follow me, but I was making too much noise and was already to my house, so he just took off. When I got home, my mom was home and I was hysterical and asked her why she would ask such a mean friend to pick me up. I told her what happened and she didn't believe me, and she calmed me down and told me that I did the right thing, but I could tell she was having a hard time believing me. She also grew up in the same town and nothing like that had happened to her. Why wouldn't you believe your child? Right? Why wouldn't you? I would automatically believe my child. Anything my child told me, I would automatically believe my child. A few days later, a friend of hers tells me a similar story about her son on another part of town. The police then were involved and the cops came and talked to me. I gave them the same description of the man, truck, and what happened. I don't know if the guy was ever caught. I used to be very bitter at my mom for not believing me, but now I understand the confusion she had, and instead of reacting, she just tried to console me and keep an eye on everything. My dad, on the other hand, was more vigilant about it and would ask me all the time when he'd take me out if someone looked like that guy in the truck. I hope no other kids were harmed by him. Roommate from hell. Never move in with a man or woman you've never personally known. I got a roommate from hell this way. The man tortured me psychologically when I turned his sexual advances down. Then he stole thousands of dollars from me over time. He even used my Amazon account to open up an account. He got some of my personal info like social, etc. as well. Once I left, after calling the cops to help me leave, he showed up at the Apple store I was at just a day after I left. Even though I left to go live on the streets, no family or friends, as I was severely ABOSD as a kid. I've been on my own since 14 actually, so I'm accustomed to surviving on the streets for periods of time. I was a million times happier than I ever was in his nice apartment surrounded by nice things in a fancy car. I felt so relieved, even just living in a concrete garage. I was a million times happier sleeping on concrete with a pillow made out of a towel and a tiny blanket in the cold and heat than I ever was living there with him. He spent his time psychologically torturing me, and I don't regret leaving at all. He would bang on the walls across from mine every morning and late at night to startle me awake. He threw pebbles or tapped on my window in the middle of the night to scare me and keep me on edge. He'd give me weird little candies and teddy bears as if we were dating. Even ordered stalkerish love items from my own Amazon account. Who the F spends this much on a Christmas ornament that says, "I'll always love and follow you," or something along those lines? If I went to the restroom, he'd run and kick his foot at the door so loud and suddenly that it sounded like a door being kicked down. He'd steal my items if I left them alone for even a second, so I'd have no way to go out if I had plans. If I'd go to the restroom, he'd run and kick his foot at the door so loud and suddenly that it sounded like a door being kicked down. He'd steal my items if I left them alone for even a second, so I'd have no way to go out if I had plans, and then he'd put them back once I mentioned them, or it was too late for me to leave for my plans. He kept me at home this way. If I got any mail or packages, he'd interrogate me. "What did you order? I need to know," like he owned me or something. Towards the end, I was leaning doors and furniture up against the wall. Towards the end, I was leaning doors and furniture up against the door because he picked my bedroom lock before while I was gone. And when I'd wake up, sometimes there was stuff missing or moved in odd ways. So I knew he was creeping around while I was asleep. He was an absolute freak. I wouldn't put anything past him since he showed me how psychotic he was. If I was happy or in a good mood, he'd start criticizing and nitpicking at my body, hair, face, behavior, voice, etc. Anything he thought I was insecure about. I even developed an eating disorder because he always did this and mocked or laughed at me when I would make or eat food. Anytime I leave my bedroom, he would rush out of his room and stand right behind or near me like a weird little dog that follows you around panting. He'd even piss in my hair products, skincare products, vitamins, etc. He'd throw out food I just bought, steal my cash, and even use my debit cards. He even ordered 30 to 40 plus items on my Amazon account without my knowledge or consent. It was the strangest thing. If anyone else had to deal with this, they'd go insane. I still have trouble believing this stuff happened, as it was just so crazy to even think that someone is that crazy to do this. You guys are still here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you and I appreciate you so, so, so very much. Please like, subscribe, and comment if you haven't yet. And until next time, stay safe out there.